follow the walk of the wild ones into the woods and the darkness, rebirth the ways of the ancient ones.
Welcome, dear one, to the Emily Alexina podcast. I'm Emily, and I'm interested in finding and nourishing our highest human potential. I believe humans have much more beauty and goodness to share with each other and with nature, much more than we have expressed in recent centuries, although we have seen glimpses of it. I'm excited about our future. On this podcast, you will hear mine and other stories on themes like motherhood, birth, holistic healing, spiritual healing, education, and farming. Support my work by rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. Also consider making a financial donation via the link in the show notes. Music is by Kate Sutherland.
Step by step through the unknown, I'll be your light and you'll be mine. In darkness, let love light the way to feed the soil of changing times.
Hello, dear listener. Welcome back to another episode. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been listening. And I have to say that when you guys give me feedback, either by email or comments, or even in person, there are a few people who talk to me and we have interesting discussions about what I share on the podcast. That really gives me fuel to keep going. And it makes me know kind of what you find interesting and useful and helpful so that I can continue to create content that is useful for you and also that I love creating. As some of you know who follow me on social media, mostly on Instagram, my family and I farm-sitted on our friend's homestead for 10 days at the beginning of August. This episode was actually recorded, I think at the end of July, right before we did that farm sitting gig. And wow, that took a lot of my energy and it took me a while to recover. And if you're interested in my sharing maybe more in podcast form, or I'm thinking of getting Vitaly on to share together about what we thought about the farm and how our dreams have shifted after that experience, do let me know. We had to milk goats every day. So there was a large herd of goats, I think about 20 of them, a bunch of males and then mums and babies. There were meat bird chickens and egg-laying hens and some ducks and 2 dogs and a cat and some fish and geckos. And of course, I still had my 3 children with me. It was a wild ride and an incredible permaculture garden. The family who lives there does consume most of their food from the land that they live on. It's incredible what they're doing. And it takes an incredible amount of work is what we learned. And I can summarize it for you right now. Basically, we are pretty sure we don't want to do that mini family homesteading situation. We kind of would want to have a bigger community of people. My personal dream, I see it happening maybe 30 years from now. How old would that make me? 60? Hey, that would not be so bad. Be perfect timing. To have like a big ashram or my husband Vitaly wants to call it shauchram, which I think is a bit of a mouthful. It basically comes from shaucha, which is one of the yamas in yoga, which is like one of the directives, cleanliness, basically. So a place to clean the body, mind, and soul, and even emotional body. For people, to come to from the local area and even worldwide. We dream of there being a school there, a place for families to come give birth and, stay a little while postpartum and have community right there to help them, and a place for their older children to be cared for. That is my ultimate dream. So if we can all envision this kind of happening together, it can be a team effort. I don't have to be the owner. I definitely prefer being more in like a leadership managing position. I feel most comfortable in that place. But, I'm open to however that can happen. And I do see it happening in our local area of Collingwood. So being with the goats and the hens and everything else kind of taught us what we would want. I think it's super important for children and all humans to be exposed to that reality, what it takes to grow our food and to get our milk and to make our cheese. Even if it's just for a stint, a week, 2 weeks, a month, you learn a lot and you develop a whole appreciation and a new perspective on the world. I also really loved the water there because it was well water, and I found my hair and my skin just absolutely loved it. But anyway, I hope I'm not rambling. I hope you find that useful. Now, getting on to the topic of today's podcast episode. This is, I guess, kind of a change in topic from what I've been talking about, birth and all the things, but it is related. This is related to women's work, womanhood, even motherhood. And I found that in my work in birth work, it has kind of brought me to like women's health and women's history, her story. And a lot of the women I have been following are so-called radical feminists, and most of them are completely against prostitution. Prostitution and pornography and that whole industry as it exists today. But most of them are completely against it in general, saying that women are always kind of forced into these positions, and if they had all the money they needed, they wouldn't do this kind of work. And this session with my friend Lena kind of turned that upside down for me. And that's what we talk about today on the podcast. Of course, I don't think this is a conversation for little ears, or I recommend you listening to it. Of course, there's no detail that we go into at all about things. So you might want to listen to it first and see whether or not you think it's appropriate for the younger people to listen to. I mean, I do think eventually teenagers and young women definitely need to be having these conversations about this reality of womanhood, even just to understand what other women go through around the world. I'm very passionate about these topics. There's a book called Half the Sky that I recommend to everybody, and that book is heart-wrenching, heart-opening. It tells the stories of women around the world and what their reality is, sex trafficking and prostitution and forced marriages on young girls. And it's awful. It's really awful. There is no sovereignty and empowerment for these women, truly. And in that book also does give some solutions to what these women are going through. Again, that's on the topic of this kind of work always being bad. But what we talk about in this episode is the perspective of one storyline. Again, I'm not too attached to this idea of past lives. I'm not sure what we're tapping into, but we're definitely relaxing the mind, opening up the consciousness, and calling forth these stories. And it's very powerful. Lena and I talk about how this story influenced us and inspired us to even have more confidence in our work, which is still judged by many to be devil's work or Satan's work or something like that. So I think that's all I want to say about that. Of course, this is a sensitive topic, and we did not go into like a very deep discussion about it. So if you have any comments or questions or anything you would like to add, feel free to email me or comment below. I would love to hear how this episode lands for you. And without further ado, let's get to the episode. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very exciting guest, Lena is a QHHT practitioner, so quantum healing hypnosis technique practitioner. It's the same work that I do. And we connected last year around this time because I was going to do some group quantum healing hypnosis technique sessions in Montreal, and I emailed all the QHHT practitioners of the area, and she got back to me saying, I can't make it, but I would love to connect. Do you want to do an exchange? And so we have been exchanging sessions ever since, and it's been such a gift, such a development for both of us, I think, personally, to keep going on our own growth journeys, and also as practitioners to share kind of like as colleagues and support each other and learn about the work together. So Lena, maybe because we have a specific topic we want to get into today, which is very exciting. We're really excited to stay focused and simple, but why don't we let Lena kind of introduce herself? And Lena, do you want to share what brought you to QHHT?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here. Okay, so what brought me to QHHT? It was kind of a crazy, long and quick journey in the way that I grew up in a very spiritual environment, very influenced by Indian wisdom and spirituality. So throughout my childhood, that was always in my life to go to retreats and meditate and talk about karma. And the idea of karma and past life were always very common knowledge. If I can say, for me, it was very normalized and not something strange at all. And about 2 years ago, I met this quantum healer who's amazing, this wonderful quantum healer in Montreal. And I had like 3 sessions with her in maybe 4 months. So from May to November, I had 3 sessions with her, and those 3 sessions changed my life forever. It was crazy because I always love spirituality. I always love connecting to my spiritual father, who's a great Indian saint, a great, great spiritual guide. And even though he passed away when I was 12 years old, I would always connect with him and talk with him in my heart. And every time I would ask him for some guidance, it would suddenly happen, that like the minute or the day after. It was really crazy, this connection that I had with him. But when I met this quantum healer, I realized that it wasn't just with him, it was with the whole spiritual realm, with my guides, with my cosmic family. And the last session I had with her, she told me, okay, so your guides tell you. So that session was entirely focused on meeting my guides. And I saw like some strange big things, like blue and strange faces, and I thought, like, they look like monster, but I'm not afraid of them, so it's really interesting. And she was like, yeah, that's galactic guides. So I was like, okay. They're like, we're talking about ETs here, actually. So I was like, all right, that's interesting. And at the end of this session, that was transformative and absolutely eye-opening, she told
Can
me,
I ask Lena, you say she's a quantum healer, but she wasn't practicing QHHT
no,
specifically, right? It's
no,
more like energy work,
yeah,
quantum healing type thing.
very
So there was
similar.
like a hypnosis that you would see things, or?
So yes and no, it's very different. Like, she doesn't use the term hypnosis in her practice, but she's a Reiki master. She's
Okay.
a clairvoyante, sentient, hearing, all the
Yeah, clairvoyant.
yeah,
Yeah.
clairvoyant, everything. She has it all. Full package. And she uses visual imagery to do her healing. I say healing in a very safe space way. And so to do her session, she uses Reiki, she uses visual imagery. She goes see your past lives, like she sees them herself. But anyways, I would love to share more about her work, but I know right now is maybe not the time. But just to say that she's really the one who allowed me to take my own personal spiritual journey that was not influenced by my background, by my family, by the spiritual background that I already had and that I was given pretty much when I arrived in this life. So she opened this door to a new world, to a new realm, to new possibilities, to make me understand my connection with the stars, with the Pleiades, and in particular at that moment. And she just told me, look, you have to do some research on starseeds and the Pleiades, and later on about Lemuria. And those 3 words, I had no idea what they meant. I was like, what is this? But how do I do the research? Like, where do I go look for it? And she was like, your guides will send you the right information on Google. I was like, what? How can this happen? I had no idea. And my life completely changed since. Like, I mean, now it's a world that I'm immersed in, and that I love, that I'm absolutely passionate about. All the quantum metaphysical world is absolutely incredible, and I love it. So that really opened the door. When I started doing my research on starseeds and on the Pleiades, I was blown away. I was freaking out how it was talking to me so much. Like, I was having, like, for 5 months, I was just having shivers all the time, you know, like, it was crazy. It was incredible. And then little by little, this led me to listening to a podcast that is called the Starseed Awakener. So I was doing research on starseeds, right? And on Lemuria. And then I arrived on this podcast, and I realized what starseeds were, how it works, how this whole galactic family is completely always with us all the time. And then she was talking about her practice through in the podcast. She was saying that she was using BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing hypnosis practice, to make people go under into this space of, into this place of knowledge of the self and of our connection with the divine and with the stars and with the universe. So when I got introduced to that practice, I was like, this is what I want to do in my life. It makes so much sense. And the next day I just bought the QHHT course, because I really wanted to study with Dolores Cannon, who is the how can we say, like, the big
like the grandmother, or like the original teacher of, like, these modern times on the subject.
She's the pioneer of inner exploration. And so I did QHHT right away, and a few months later I did BQH. So QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique by Dolores Cannon. And a few months later I did the BQH, Beyond Quantum Healing course with Candice Carl-Goldman, which I absolutely loved. Both are foundations if you want to work in quantum hypnosis. It's just wonderful knowledge. 2 different approaches that are both very nourishing and absolutely precious. So that's what brought me to QHHT, and now it's my whole life. In, like, I don't know, 15, 16 months, it's my new life, and it makes just so much sense. It just makes so much sense.
Yeah. Thank you. And I love our dynamic and our work together, because you come from a background of yoga, like from your childhood, and your mother following like Shivananda yoga, and who's his, like, follower, or
who's her spiritual father? It's Swami Chidananda. So he's the one who succeeded. I don't like this word. I don't know what's the appropriate word, but Shivananda pretty much gave him the permission to continue his legacy of spiritual teaching to Swami Chidananda. There was many, but Swami Chidananda is the one who took over the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh, for the one who are familiar with this.
And is he the one who passed when you were 12? Chidananda?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
been like mid 900.
In the 90s.
No, before.
Oh, Shivananda.
Shivananda passed. I can't remember his passing date, but yeah.
I think it was sometime in July, actually. I think he has a connection, because at the Shivananda Center in Montreal, they do like a big celebration of Shivananda at some point. And that's been a fun connection that we have. So we have a very similar like spiritual base. Because I did my yoga teacher training like 10, 11 years ago in the Shivananda style. And my husband and I have been studying, reading his books, and just like it's been like a big part of our foundation. And the other thing I love about you, so that's like a common point. And then
and it's a
the
safe
other
space.
thing I love,
I just want to say it's a safe space for me too, and I always tell that to my
yeah,
husband, like to, and even my mom when I talk about our what we share with each other and what we exchange in our practice. I'm always like, I love Emily so much because we understand each other with this foundation that we both have. So it's a really
yeah.
beautiful safe space and common language, I feel.
And I would say the yogic teachings are in general like the older yogic teachings, Patanjali and some of these other like older yogic saints provide a very strong ground and foundation onto which we can explore all these quantum things, because it's like it's very simple and solid, strong foundation to go and explore. Like is even especially Patanjali, which I haven't dived into too much, but my husband is more into that. So he like provides that groundedness for me sometimes. And then what I also love is that you are kind of more interested in the galactic, the stars, the Pleiades and the ETs. And I've kind of always been drawn to more like the earth, nature, the Essenes, the mystical people like of the earth. And you're more like these people here. And I find it so beautiful because then we like play with that together. And we teach each other, you know, from the different things that we learn. And we also attract different clients. Like I think you get a lot more sessions that are more star based and galactic, and I get more like earthy based. But you know, yeah, we get a mix of everything, but it's very interesting.
No, but it's true. It's true. And I think it's a beautiful knowledge of the earth and of the wisdom and of the spiritual knowledge that, my God, it has been so lost, unfortunately, mixed with the intuition and just the kind of light, not light language, because I'm not so familiar with that yet. I'm very interested, but I'm not familiar with it.
But I would say so, yeah, in a sense.
The light language and the intuition that is within, and the light as the light, LIGTA, I don't know. And the lightness, like the what is not heavy, and the lightness of, you know, light. I don't know. It's not coming out well. But anyways, I think you get it.
Yeah, I think I get it. Yeah, and I hope people listening get it. But if there's anything here that we talk about that you'd like us eventually to expand more on, just comment on the podcast or on YouTube directly. And Lena and I plan to do this more often. We're calling this metaphysical. Well, I was thinking of calling this Metaphysical Hour Junior.
Yeah. I love
so it. It's like a junior version, you know, just two like QHHT practitioners discussing their sessions and sharing together. So let's dive into, I think, let's go right into that session that we had with you recently. That was so interesting. And it was the life. I actually love how in French you call it, what do you call it? Une femme de plaisir? A woman of pleasure.
Yeah, so
I love that wording.
Yeah,
that wording more so than like a prostitute, but basically she was a woman.
Pleasure lady. Yeah, I don't know.
A pleasure lady, like making her living from like pleasuring men basically in those kind of intimate ways. And so yes, you know, watch for little ears. This is maybe not an episode for having children around. Pause and listen another time, or put some headphones in. But yeah, I found this episode so interesting. And it's funny that Lena, you asked like, Emily, why did you find that so specifically interesting? From my background of birth work and women's work and matriarchy that I've been studying, kind of like radical feminism type stuff, which I'm not like myself personally 100% aligned with, but I've just been intaking a lot of information from these kind of places. And a lot of them are like pretty much against like prostitution, human trafficking, I mean, of course, pornography, and all these kind of things, and talking about how detrimental it is for the men in our societies, and also, of course, for the women who are involved and who are often like really poorly treated. So that's why this contrast was so interesting. But Lena, maybe you want to share a little bit about that woman's storyline first.
I think it was really interesting, and I re-listened to it this morning to have it fresh in my mind. So I just want to say first that all the past lives that we saw, all my past lives that I visited with Emily and with other practitioners, they were all about like dragons and like on other planets, and very deep spiritual connection with the earth or with the dragons or with other magical elements, we would call them today, as we don't see them as real. But that life was absolutely unexpected. It was really unexpected. I was so, and I think that's the most interesting thing with quantum hypnosis, is that when someone goes under, they completely take the personality of that person that they are, that of that character that they are seeing in this life. And I was having full on her personality. It was crazy. I was impressed. Like my mind, my left brain that we call it in QHHT, was like, what is going on? What is this? Who's this woman? Like, what the hell is happening now? And I was just like, wow, like this is so fun. I'm having so much fun with my life, with my work. I love my work. I'm absolutely feeling good and empowered and respected. And I think I was even saying that I could choose the men I would want to go with, and because I had a certain status, apparently, because I was doing that for a while. And it was really interesting to see, apart from just the prostitution side, it was beautiful to see a woman in, I think it was in Portugal, if I remember correctly, and it was around the 700s.
700s?
Yeah, what did you remember?
Oh, I thought it was like later for some reason in my mind, but that
No, it
would
was
make sense.
1700s. 1700s.
Yeah, I thought it was like after
Yeah.
the thousands.
Yeah. No, it was
Okay,
1700s. Sorry.
it was later. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they just felt a bit more developed than that.
No,
Like kind
totally.
of coming out of the dark ages of Europe, like into the light ages. Yeah.
No, you're right. No, it was during the 1700s. Sorry. And I think it was beautiful to feel this woman, to feel the life of this woman who was absolutely thrilled about doing what she loved, and feeling empowered, feeling beautiful within and outside, and just feeling this total balance with her confidence and with herself. And what happened throughout the life is that we saw that she was starting to develop a relationship with a man who was at first very comfortable with her work, with the fact that she was a woman of pleasure, that we call it. And he was like, yeah, of course, I honor you, I respect you with your work, I want you to keep doing that. And little by little it changed, and he started to feel sad, and he started to feel rejected and afraid that she would have so much pleasure with other men, and that it was her job, it was her work, she was doing it by passion, like there was no ego involved, it was really just her passion and what she loved doing. And this man's fears and sadness, and it became almost a disapproval. He would always go and tell her that he was sad and he was feeling rejected, and she was listening, and by just listening she was absorbing his pain. So at first she was very balanced and she was very grounded, and little by little, by just being there with compassion, and that's where I think sometimes compassion can have a very negative side, and we need to be careful on how we have compassion with others, and if we see it as as seeing someone as more vulnerable, so we want to have compassion, I think it can be very interestingly negative and not so healthy. And then she was having so much compassion for him that she kind of absorbed all his pain, all his fears, all his suffering, and that made her sick. And when
Well, he was also her husband, right?
yeah,
Like they ended up being
yeah,
together.
yeah,
I think that had it been like a friend or someone she was less connected to that she was listening on, like this was like her husband. It's
yeah,
someone so involved with who you are as a person.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have a feeling that it was that partnership aspect of it
Yeah.
that
And it was
it kind of
after
seeped
they
into
got
her.
married, he started telling her how he was feeling really, and his
Mhm.
point of view changed. So it was interesting to see that. Yeah. And that made her sick, and that made her absorb all his suffering, and she ended up just passing away and dying because she was so sick. Just because she opened herself to his vulnerability, she absorbed
Mhm.
it. It was a very, because even though she was a prostitute and, well, woman of pleasure, I don't know what is the best way to call her. It was very energetic, right? You remember, like with the contraception and
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I think what I remember is that she contracted like an STI of some kind
yeah,
after she was with her husband, and what you were saying was that the women, because of their reasons for doing their work and their intention and their like love for the work and for themselves and for their clients, there was actually like a very high vibe that was kind of protecting them from STIs, from unwanted pregnancies. I remember asking, and you said that they did use some herbs that they would put inside themselves
yeah,
for contraception, but also just energetically and with their mind, willpower being so certain of whether or not they wanted. Like some of the women would choose to get pregnant
yeah,
every once in a while, and so did the character that we're speaking about. Um, and then it was his, yeah, like his kind of negativity, his fears that
mhm,
just over time of living with this person, of like she loved him. I think that's a big part of it
yeah,
too.
yeah. She really
Her
loved.
heart was so open and connected,
Yeah,
and I think that's what made her, this is from my perspective, more vulnerable to his worries and concerns. And even though she didn't have them at the beginning, just hearing that over and over from someone that you love so deeply with your heart, it becomes part of you.
yeah,
In French, we say "veux pas," like
yeah,
even if you don't want it. And and then that made her vulnerable to being hurt by her work,
hmm,
and maybe even having a certain sense of guilt or shame, even if it was subconscious, even if it came from her husband, that opened her up to being
yeah,
hurt by her work, which she didn't have at all in the beginning. Like I remember you saying, like I could, because you kind of speak when you're in it, as the client, with like your mind saying, I don't understand why this is not a problem, but it's
hmm,
not a problem. Like
hmm,
she's having so much fun, she feels empowered, she
hmm,
loves this. You said that they were respected in the
hmm.
town that they were in
Yeah,
because they were,
absolutely.
even the wives of the clients were like, thank you for like
Yeah,
taking care of my husband in this way because it makes our marriage more manageable.
yeah. I mean, I was
It's kind of like
impressed.
mind blowing.
I was so impressed because, I mean, this is, I don't think I could see it this way with my husband, like, ever. So
Mm.
that's why I think that's the real power and magic of QHHT and quantum world in general, where, my gosh, we really go and experience this life. Like, this is not what, all that I saw is nothing that I necessarily believe, that I even
Hmm.
ever thought about. Like, I never thought about these things. And I've seen a few sessions where people were prostitutes in past life, and it was always very interesting to understand why they were prostitutes. And this woman, it was wonderful to just to see her life and to feel it, and it just gives us so much. And now I speak as a client, not as a practitioner. It gave me so much perspective on other realities. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think QHHT does that. Like, one thing I feel like it does is it can help us flip around our judgments
Yeah.
or heal our judgments.
Yeah.
You know, we have certain ideas about the world and certain judgments of what's right and what's wrong and how things should be. And of course, source and like God likes to break all of that down and is like, you can have something that you think is wrong but is actually full of love and can be right. And our religions are even yoga too can have this, you know, like the Vedic world can often be like extremely dogmatic
Yeah.
and Puritan.
Yeah.
And it doesn't
Any
mean it's
religion, really.
necessarily, pardon? Yeah,
Any
every
religion,
religion.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily wrong. Like these can be helpful foundations and paths and like blinders to keep us on a certain path. But when we move further and we want to come into love and into the heart, we get and open our minds, we get to see like, whoa, there's actually other realities and other ways of these things working out and other ways of prostitution maybe being the best path, the highest path for a woman in a certain lifetime.
Yeah.
And also all the people around her. And it, yeah, like even for me as a practitioner, it broke down a lot. Because like I was saying, in my world of radical feminism and kind of studying, yeah, this comes back to like the gender stuff that's going on right now. Like I've been following a lot of people who are mostly against it, and they talk about just our approach to like sexuality in general and how pornography and prostitution, human trafficking is all like put in together. It's all mixed up. It's very dark right now. There's a lot of drugs involved. There's a lot of like power plays between the people who control the women and, you know, the performers and who gets the money and their freedom. And it can make us think that it's always a bad thing. And then to have you like show this lifetime, it kind of blew that open. And that's what I love about QHHT too. We can look at times in history and learn from how they used to do things. How was it so different? You know, like you said, in that village, there was a church, but there was no like thing with the church with the work
True.
that they were doing. And I
I
was like, how, like,
forgot.
I'm so like interested in the church and the Inquisition
Yeah.
and how that limited
Yeah.
women and all these things. And it didn't limit them in that lifetime. It was just like this peaceful place,
We had
you
an
know?
agreement with the priest, I think, or something. A
Yeah.
peaceful
Yeah.
agreement, and it was like, look, I keep the peace. Like, I was like, I keep the peace. You respect me, and thank you. That's it. Like, merci, bonsoir, like we would say in French. So how much do we really know about what happened in the past, and how does that define us in our judgment today on things that are going on? I mean, if you look at and that's completely another subject, and I don't want to get like right into it, and it's not even like if I knew that much about it. I'm very ignorant about it. But when you look at the whole LGBTQ community and at trans people, there's always been trans people.
Yeah.
There's always been. I mean, I traveled a lot in my life, and for more than 5 years I was living in my backpack and traveling a little bit everywhere around the world. And I met trans people everywhere, like in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in India, even in Morocco, probably. Like, I mean, they have always existed. And now there is a lot of education, information, and awareness about their community. And I think it's really important to understand and keep doing our research and listen to both sides. But there's always has been. It's just that they didn't have Instagram back then to show what their reality was to the whole world. And that's why I love quantum hypnosis, because we can really go not only get information about how can the person help herself in her or his own life, but what happened really in the past and what was their reality for real. Because people, when they're under hypnosis, they don't invent Most of the time, they don't invent anything. It's too complicated to invent. And then we can discuss about it in another episode, because I think it's really important to demystify all this. But yeah, it's just fascinating how they incarnate this character, and with all their personalities and all the reality. I mean, we were talking about the energy, how close this woman and her community of women of pleasure were so close to energy work and to energy feelings, because they were very connected to their femininity. And we know that the feminine, the femininity, yeah, they're very intuitive and connected, and we can feel so much stuff, and men as well, they can feel stuff, but I'm just talking about masculine and feminine. And they could just feel if they wanted to activate the sperm of the man to make a baby or not, like as like raw as that. And it's not written in history books, because they were all written by men, so how much do we really know, you know? And I think that's why it's beautiful to explore through quantum hypnosis what really happened and what people really went through in their little daily life. Yeah,
like the average person, right? Like,
yeah,
usually history books are written about like the big names and the big historical moments, but like the day to day, what were they living? And sometimes there's like, deep wisdom that can come from that. I love that aspect of the historical research
yeah,
of this
and
work.
that's what Dolores Cannon main focus was. She was really
Right.
How does she say it? She says
the reporter, the observer, and the reporter
of lost knowledge. And
yeah,
if you have an open mind, you will see how interesting it can be to see someone going under trance, not remembering everything when they wake up, and waking up with like tears or with smiles or with confusion, and they're just like, what happened? And they went and lived that life for a little glimpse of time. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention, the one aspect about those women keeping the peace in the village, like that just keeps coming back to me.
Yeah.
You know, we think about like pornography and how much it's used by men nowadays because of their energy that they have. And
yeah,
the porn world is like in general a pretty terrible world.
And it's
what's available.
I think
online.
it's mainly managed by men as well. I don't know. Maybe
Right. Yes,
but
I think you're right. That's a super good point.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, even the fashion industry, sorry to cut you, but even the fashion industry is mainly taken care of by men. You know, like it's completely crooked. Like, it's crazy how when you look at the base of it, men have an unbalanced power in this world. And it's like men for the men. I don't know how to.
Right. They create something for themselves, but they're missing that like the feminine power and the really strong side of the feminine.
Yeah.
And exactly, like just that aspect of peace, of the men having their like sexuality kind of taken care of by these women who are experts, and it just maintained the peace in the whole town. And I think you said at one point, like, you were respected.
Yeah.
And I found that a bit surprising, because usually, you know, we look down on that kind of work, but in that town, in that setting, like that group of women was really respected because of the peace that they brought to the village. And it flips, like, you know, you can think like prostitution always equals bad.
Yeah.
And then you come across something like this and you're like, whoa, there's a whole other way of it being done. And what I love now is like, so how can we take this information, and maybe someone who's doing that kind of work can like implement it into their work.
And I think the people who do this work, they love their work when it comes from a place of balance and of self-love. I cannot see it otherwise. And I know friends who have friends who are women of pleasures, and I know they love their work, and I absolutely respect them. And I think it's beautiful that they do what they love, and they should get a lot of merit and respect and compassion, please. Like, so much compassion for what they do, because everyone who do a job that comes from passion and self-love and balance, and I mean, it
And
can't go
service, and a
wrong.
sense of like service to
Yeah,
others. Yeah.
yeah.
That's so interesting. This is really flipping my stuff upside down, because I've been like especially following her name is Whose Body Is It? Isabella Malbin on Instagram and YouTube, kind of learning about this industry and different things. And she's hypercritical. And her point of view is always that women turn to this kind of work when they have no other choices. And they always are happy when they get out of it. So I'm really glad to have had my world and my mind kind of opened up with your session. And I'm curious too, because you had said after your session how you felt. So after accessing this lifetime of this character, how did that influence kind of your life going afterwards, after that point?
Wow, that's a big question. I don't know. I think when I have sessions, the wisdom is beautiful, and I kind of absorb it, put it in my heart or wherever it wants to go in my spirit. And then I go on with life, and I just let this feeling be. But I think I've had other sessions, like the one I explored with you in Descendant of Lemurians, where I listened to those sessions a lot, and that was, I think, more in November last year. And this is for some aspect that it's really connected with my personal life. I think a lot about this wisdom, but maybe in the next few weeks or in the next month, I'll re-listen to it more and more, and I'll be able to tell you, okay, really, like, there's that, and I'll take notes and we'll talk about it. But
I remember, I think in the few days afterwards, I remember you telling me that you felt like more feminine, more confident, more joyful. Was that true? Because that's I think I remember you telling me that.
Totally. And I think that's something that, and that's more on my personal story. But the first time I went to see this quantum healer I told you about earlier, Karine, her name is, she's wonderful. And the first time I went to see her, I did a huge work on my feminine side, because I really felt like my femininity, femininity. How do you say in English?
Yeah, your feminine.
Yeah, my femininity. Well, that's weird.
Your feminine side.
My feminine side. I really felt like I kind of abandoned it over the years, with traveling, with doing so much stuff that requires, like, just, I don't know. It doesn't need to require anything really, but I think I just abandoned it a bit, and with clothes, with jewelry, with enjoying feeling beautiful, I think I really, really put it aside for many, many, many years. And definitely this is a work that is still going on to feel good about inner and outer beauty. And maybe that was also something. And the confidence, because this woman was so confident about what she was doing, and she was so sure about what she was doing. And I think it's difficult sometimes. I don't know for you. I think you're doing an amazing job with your podcast, with YouTube, with Instagram, in finding the confidence to share the knowledge you want to share, and the experience that you had in your work, or with homeschooling, or with doula, or so I think that's something that I need to cultivate more. And it's beautiful to see this connection with this woman, to know that it's within, and I just need to let it out and allow it to be out, and not care about the outer image or judgment.
Yeah, and
Something
it was
I need
even
to
a
work
lesson
on.
from it was even a lesson for me in confidence, because she was doing a job that could be so easily, like I said, shamed and looked down upon. And even in her day, I think she had that awareness, but she also knew that she was like just was doing something in alignment, something loving, and was just set on that, and there are some personalities, there are some people that have an easier time of that. They might have struggles in other departments, but that one confidence part is really strong for them. And it's
Yeah.
totally something I've struggled with. Even today, I saw a quote of someone that said, the Bible is very clear that witchcraft is wrong. So anything like psychic and tarot cards, all that stuff is like evil and should be avoided according to the Bible. And this is like a friend who posted, you know, something like that came up
Yeah.
on in her stories. And I over the years better and better because, you know, this type of work is what the church was coming after people for, was burning people for hundreds of years. And humanity is still healing from that. So this type of work is work that could be put down, that could be shamed, that could be said it's like devil's work or whatever. So I have to grapple with that too. And I think I've just been doing it. Oh, are you still there, Lena?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm here. Someone tried to call
It's okay.
me and I just had to like cancel it. Don't call me now. I'm busy. Are you here? Okay.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I've just been doing it longer, maybe, that I'm finding my groove and to be confident in that I'm doing something that I absolutely love, that I think is of service to others and makes me grow in love, you know, as a person. So
And that's
yeah, that I learned from that woman, that kind of
yeah.
thing. And I don't know about you, but I feel like some of the characters that I've connected with who are very positive, like strong type of people, I can go back to those
Yeah.
memories and sometimes like pull that feeling up.
Yeah.
Like sometimes in quantum healing, we'll access a character who has more confidence than we've ever even felt in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And so we can like connect to her
Yeah.
confidence and then like let that seep through us and be like, okay, I felt that once in that lifetime. We can bring it forward. And I think that's one of the gifts of this type of work.
And this makes me think of another experience I had with you. Like, oh my God, I think if we open this box, we could talk forever. But yes, to channel this energy of the character, it's so powerful. And this is something I often tell to my clients and people I see with hypnosis. I'm just like, this character that you saw, you can channel all the good things and all the bad things. You can let it go. You learn them, but keep the good things with you because they're amazing tools. And that's why I'll never say it enough. Listen to your recording, re-listen to it, re-listen to it. People don't listen to their recording. I'm like,
No.
you have like a free recording with you that is gold, like with so much knowledge, so much wisdom. But yeah, absolutely. This confidence, and you were saying something and I wanted to answer, but now I forgot, but it's okay. But yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. What is it that I want to say?
That's all right. I think we can kind of close up maybe as a teaser. Do you want to mention the lifetime that you feel like you channeled to bring up the positive qualities? We'll mention it and maybe we can talk about that one next
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so you remember so it was, I think, the second or third live that we saw in this session, and I arrived on a planet and I was doing some work, and I think it was like you remember, huh? I think it
The Catwoman?
yeah.
The Catwoman?
Yeah. That was really interesting. And I had other friends and clients who were on a planet very similar, a planet of sand, kind of dunes. It kind of looks like dunes. And my friend who I regressed last year, well, regressed is a term for quantum hypnosis, for regression. And she was also on this kind of planet. And it was very interesting to see the similarities. But yeah, this woman who kind of looked like a cat. And for people who are familiar with galactic people, star people, there's often traits of animals, cats, lions, reptiles, and stuff like that. It's so interesting. And then I got on this planet and I was working and I had my life going. And then boom, for just a second, the planet burned over. And I was so pissed that people burned the planet and I couldn't keep doing my job. And it was so interesting to feel this anger and this rage that normally it's not an emotion that I feel so much in this life. Rage and very big colère, how do you say, like anger?
Yeah, anger.
Yeah, lots of anger. I have plenty of other human emotions, but this one is not one that it's not an emotion I'm very familiar with. And I was channeling this rage and I could feel it. And I was like, wow, what is going on? And then after that, I think when we got to the higher self was like, yeah, you should definitely channel this rage more often and just like do it, you know.
Yeah, like allow yourself to get fired up a little bit.
And it was that life was really interesting. We can talk about it.
Very interesting.
And I really want to talk about your life in Lemuria, but I think you did a podcast about it already, no?
Well, I have not gone into too much detail. There is a YouTube video where it's a review of Sarah Breskman Cosme's book on Atlantis. I think it's a hypnotist journey to Atlantis, which is amazing. I highly recommend.
Oh, good.
And after I review and comment that book, at the end of the video, I share a little bit about the lifetime in Lemuria that I saw with you that coincides and complements and explains a bit more from what was in that book. And I do have the article mostly written out of the transcript of that audio for people to listen to. And so I want to kind of release that article and then do a YouTube video or podcast about that whole lifetime and how it has very much inspired me and changed me in this life. So maybe we can do that one together. That would be really
cool. Would be really interesting because I think Lemuria has so much wisdom to share. They were so connected to nature, and even my life in after Lemuria as a descendant is, I think, the life I feel most connected to right now in this lifetime. And I love it absolutely. But thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I was so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah, I think this was super fun, and we definitely plan on doing these more. We plan on doing them in French, so maybe we'll have like one in English and one in French every month. And I will post all the information to connect with Lena if you're in Quebec and you want to do a session in French or in English. You're in Victoriaville, right?
Yeah.
And for now, because hoping to move soon.
Yeah. Sessions
and I'll post
online
also...
and in Victoriaville in person and online for BQH sessions.
Online.
When people want online sessions. Yeah.
And I will post also the information of Catherine if people are interested in looking her up in Montreal. Yeah. And the podcast. You want to mention the podcast again? That was like the Starseed podcast?
Yeah, the Starseed Awakener podcast from Monet Florence Combs. Yeah. Really, really interesting. Really good. And she really inspired me a lot in my work and in my practice. She's wonderful. I don't know if her podcast still exists. I think it does, but I know she started it to do something else than quantum hypnosis. But yeah, very, very.
Yeah. I think we can go into some of this Starseed stuff because I have questions for you. It's not really a world that I've explored too much, but so good to keep learning and opening.
I would love to answer your questions if I can, and if I have the knowledge, I would be so, so happy because it's a subject that is really, it passions me so much, and I think it's very important for people to know about it because a lot of people feel alone in this crazy world, and when they look at the stars they feel like their family's up there. So I think it's really important to make awareness for that. And if you have any questions, or to everyone listening, if you have any questions or if you want us to talk about something in particular, it would be our pleasure, really.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lena. I wish you an awesome continuation to your day.
Thank you. To you too,
merci.
Friend. Bye. Merci.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Follow the walk of the wild ones into the woods and the darkness. Rebirth the ways of the ancient ones whose tracks were washed away in blood. It falls to us now to open up and taste beyond what we've been fed. Take up the phoenix fire of cleansing, change to light the path instead. Follow the walk of the wild ones into the woods and the darkness. Rebirth the ways of the ancient ones whose tracks were washed away in blood. It falls to us now to to open up and taste beyond what we've been fed. Take up the phoenix fire of cleansing, change to light the path instead. Step by step through the unknown, I'll be your light and you'll be mine. In darkness, let love light the way to feed the soil of changing times. Step by step through the unknown, I'll be your light and you'll be mine. In darkness, let love light the way to feed the soil of changing times. Follow the walk of the wild ones into the woods and the darkness. Rebirth the ways of the ancient ones whose tracks were washed away in blood. It falls to us now to open up and taste beyond what we've been fed. Take up the phoenix fire of cleansing, change to light the path instead. Step by step through the unknown, I'll be your light and you'll be mine. In darkness, let love light the way to feed the soil of changing times. Step by step through the unknown, I'll be your light and you'll be mine. In darkness, let love light the way to feed the soil of changing times.